Fintech. What is it? Who's involved and what does it mean for Wales? Business News Wales have hosted an exclusive roundtable event with some of the most prominent business leaders in the field to discuss this and more, including representatives from Confused.com, Wealthify and Credas, hosted by Matt Hyde and sponsored by Recruit121. We hope you'll enjoy and learn from the first in our series of industry insights.
Welcome to the first Business News Wales Fintech podcast, sponsored by Recruit121 and Fintech Awards Wales. So I'm your host, Matt Hyde. Now, I'm sure many of us have heard the term Fintech bandied about, but what actually is it? Why is it important for all of us to know and understand what it is, and what impact is it having on the economy here in Wales? To answer these and other questions, we have three guests who are at the heart of the fintech sector, not just in Wales, but across the UK. First up, we have Richard Theo, who is the founder of ActiveQuote, CEO of Aviva-backed Wealthify, and more recently appointed the UK government's Fintech Envoy for Wales. So welcome, Richard. Nice to have you with us today.
Nice to be here.
So maybe you could explain to us what is Wealthify, and also a little bit about your role as the envoy for the British government.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here. So Wealthify was born 4 years ago with an idea that to democratise investing. So back at the time, really, the younger generation really didn't have easy access to investing. So we created a business in Wealthify to give them easy access to investing, done entirely online and on apps. And our mission really is to transform the way people save and make investing the new normal for us. So at Wealthify, we build people personal investment plans online and on mobile, according to just one question: what's your appetite for risk when you invest? And we sort of select, monitor and manage people's investments for them online. So that's really what Wealthify does. And we were excited last year to sort of be backed by Aviva, one of the biggest and most well-known financial services brands in the UK. And we're working really closely with them now to make Wealthify their sort of front line and leading proposition in terms of how they appeal to a young generation of investors too. So that's really, really exciting.
What about your role then as this fintech envoy for the British government in Wales?
Yeah, so the UK government recognised a few years ago as part of their industrial strategy that we were doing really well in the UK in financial services and in particular in fintech. And so they also realised that rather too much of that was going on just in London and not in the regions. So as part of their strategy, they sought to appoint and recruit some mugs, should I say, not mugs, people who would stand up for free and sort of champion their own region, so to create a bit of a spread across the country. And they asked me to do that role for Wales, having seen what I'd done with businesses down here. And I've taken that challenge on. We have an amazing fintech ecosystem here in Wales. So we've got something like 40 small businesses and scale-up businesses doing exciting things in fintech. We'll probably come on a little bit later in the podcast to address the challenge, what actually is fintech. And so I'm here trying to sort of help do everything needed to make an ecosystem come to life that enables new startups to start, the ones that have started to scale up as effectively as possible. And we'll talk more later on in the podcast, I guess, about the specific initiatives that we're doing there.
No, so two really massive roles that you've got there. So great to have you with us today. So our next guest is Louise O'Shea. So Louise is the CEO of Cardiff-based Confused.com. So Confused.com was the UK's first comparison site and one of the most well-known fintechs, I suppose, from many years ago. So Louise, we've all heard of Confused.com. In fact, I'm sure all of us here use it regularly. But many may be surprised to know that it's based here in Cardiff. But maybe you could explain a little bit about how it's evolved and grown over the years and maybe where you're going.
Great. It's great to be here. So thank you very much. And absolutely, I hope that you're all using Confused.com. So we were created in the early 2000s and the purpose fundamentally being to save customers time and money when they shop for their insurance and lots of other financial services and products. And that comes from a recognition that customers were in pain when they're shopping for these products. They were having to spend a lot of time doing it, and the information that they were getting back wasn't clear and easy for them to compare. So for us, Confused.com, even the brand name, comes from our purpose of clearing confusion out of the way. for customers. We use technology at the heart. We're a technology company, and we have developed over the last 17 years to grow, not just in the UK, but worldwide. So we have operations from Mexico to the Middle East, and we also have a huge tech team over in India. And I'm happy to talk more about tech talent in South Wales and the need for it a bit later on. Fundamentally, for us, technology is at the heart of what we do, and solving customers' pain with technology is key to business success.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, and we'll certainly address some of those issues a bit later on. Our final guest is Rhys David. Now, Rhys has had some interesting roles, from leading on a project dealing with the Deepwater Horizon issue to being head of business intelligence at GoCompare.com, but is now CEO of Credas. So good to have you with us today, Rhys.
Thank you, Matt. Great to be here.
So I suppose the first question really to you is, what does Credas actually do?
We provide identity verification services, so we combine sort of cutting and bleeding edge technologies to automate and speed up the verification process. If you think of the amount of times in your life you need to prove who you are to make or conduct certain transactions is quite painful. So we take that away, increase the accuracy, de-risk the business in the eyes of the regulators, and all the while providing a far better customer experience than having to take your passport to be photocopied on a Saturday rainy morning if you want to buy a house.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we'll maybe look at a few more details about that as we go through. The podcast is all about fintech, and we keep mentioning the word fintech, but I think if you go onto the street, many people have heard the word, but when you actually ask them to explain what is fintech, many still don't know. I think it's the question I get asked the most. Maybe Richard, how would you explain the word fintech?
So yeah, fintech it does what it says on the tin. It's technology to empower and enhance the world of finance and financial services. So we're talking here specifically about software technologies. What's happening in the world today, of course, is that digital things are disrupting and changing the world every day. We've seen Uber change forever the world of taxis, and that whole process has also been going on in financial services. So the term fintech really encapsulates that whole transformation that technology and software is bringing to the financial services world. And of course, the potential for it is huge. So many financial services firms today employ thousands of people to do traditional jobs in customer service and sales. Those companies that can embrace technology and deal with those challenges online and through technology, have the potential to strip cost out. And of course, that's fantastic for consumers in the end, because what that does ultimately is reduce cost.
Excellent. So nicely summed up there, Richard. So thank you. I'm sure we'll all be writing all that down. Interesting point you mentioned there. There was a quote recently that described fintech as the Uber of the financial services world, how it's really disrupted the market like Uber has. I mean, would we agree that it is disrupting and is going to continue disrupting the financial services markets that we all work in?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's a term that only sort of came to life 5 to 10 years ago. But of course, there have been firms that have really been doing fintech before it was even called fintech. Confused.com is one example of such a firm that was doing that before we called it fintech. What's happened though with the coining of the phrase is it's given a sort of momentum to a sort of a cause and a purpose around fintech, which we in South Wales are trying to seize upon. Yeah.
I think it's important as well to recognise that it's a lot about a mindset, because you can have you don't need to be a startup to embrace fintech, and it's a lot about the mindset you've got as a company. So, for example, you can have all the technology, but if you're not using that technology to solve some pain that the customer's in, then it's not going to do you any good, to be perfectly frank. So for me, it's very much about a mindset. And I was over in Silicon Valley last year and met a lot of different companies. And it really brought it home to me, the importance of having to try new things and shifting your mindset to the art of the possible. And that's what I think we have in Confused.com, and we've had since the kind of day we were born. And that is challenging the status quo and the norms and disrupting the way we operate as customers, as businesses.
And do you think that, I suppose, the bigger corporations, the bigger banks are keeping up with pace? Or is this the opportunity for Confused.coms and the Wealthifys to come in and take a lead in these areas?
Fintech, as kind of Louise was just saying, it's almost a cultural thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in answer to your question, what Fintech is doing for the larger firms is also demonstrating a different cultural approach to how they can be more successful. And I think what we've seen in the evolution of the world of Fintech is that, first of all, it meant smaller companies starting exciting new ideas. What that's done for the bigger corporates is make them wake up to the fact that unless they culturally adapt and move faster with technology, there's a real risk that they're going to get left behind, in the same way as Uber did in the taxi space, but in numerous other examples in digitization, like Airbnb coming along and completely changing, the hotel industry and things like that. So
I think that's harder for bigger companies. A cultural shift. We always use the analogy of a speedboat versus an oil tanker, and we're very much a speedboat, but we work with lots of different insurance partners and financial services partners, all your big brand names that you'd recognize, and it's a lot harder for them to move because they have legacy systems, they have thousands of staff, so it is more challenging for them. But if they can do it right, and I think Aviva's acquisition of Wealthify is a great example of where they've recognised, actually, by partnering with these smaller startups, it will help them to bring some of that culture and that know-how into their businesses.
And that was absolutely part of the rationale. It wasn't just that they wanted the technology and service we developed. They want to be able to innovate new things quicker themselves going forwards, and they almost want to learn from us about how we do it and bring kind of disruptive thinking into the process. Probably worth just throwing in, as a good intro to my friend Rhys here, that there are sort of broadly three models of fintech. There's companies like Wealthify, which had an idea which they've taken direct to consumer. So they've created a brand and a service that consumers can buy into that encapsulates a more modern way of doing something. But there are other companies out there really with two other models. One is that they're developing technology that they actually want to sell to corporates to help the corporate do a better job, but they won't necessarily be seen as a consumer-facing brand. And really the third model, which is companies that are coming along with a technology that they realise they're not likely to succeed selling direct to consumer, but by working with a corporate to sell it, then they can bring it to market and attain scale and success. And Rhys, you're a good example of with Credas, of a company that's a supplier of technology to companies.
Yeah, we're doing all three really, and I just agree with Louise and Richard what they said. There's a mindset. So in my career, purely technology, you would never see a technology person on the board 15, 20 years ago. Technology was always seen as a utility, down in a basement, dark room, just write some code, get on with it. But now they're very much at board level, and almost every business needs to be technology led. So in the same way as agile was a buzzword and now it caught on, it's about transforming from the inside out. And linking back to Richard's problem, what I've seen over the last 15 years is the bigger oil tankers who want to turn just can't do it from the inside out, so they buddy up with people who have the capabilities to inject some speed and gain momentum and change the way people think. Agile and fintech and technology is fundamentally about innovation and changing the way people think. So we are seeing, with our sort of fairly rapid growth as a business, is we've created a set of solutions technologically that we can just plant into another business that's much larger than ours, and they roll with it. So they attract clients themselves and are able to compete in their own markets far more successfully than they could. The contra to that is if they had to reinvent that or create that technology themselves, it's millions of pounds, 2 years, and you've lost 2 years' ground to your competitors. So it's the ability to inject that capability very quickly.
And it's great to have your companies here. You're all based in Cardiff and based in Wales, not just doing well in Wales, the UK, but more globally. So would we say then it's really important that the fintech sector in Wales, is really important to growth for the country?
Absolutely, fintech's important to the Welsh economy. It's a real opportunity for Wales to grab hold of this momentum and own it and grow. And I think there are lots of examples from around the world where different countries have put in place provisions, investment, even tax breaks to encourage technology hubs. And with all of the different universities that we've got in South Wales and the focus and the opportunity to create employment for people throughout their age, whether they're entering the workforce or coming back into the workforce, I think the technology sector presents a huge opportunity to us.
Definitely. So I suppose the question then is, what challenges are we going to have being in a small country here in the UK? So,
I think perhaps let's just concentrate on our strengths just before we go to the challenges. In South Wales, we have a fantastic low operating cost environment, and that's hugely attractive to people wanting to sort of base a company or start a company up. We have really only 2 hours to London, where we have to accept in financial services that is a core market to everybody, but 2 hours is nothing. Americans would consider that a drive to the park in distance terms. We've now already got this very sort of rapidly growing community of kind of incubators, hubs, accelerator buildings that allow people to come and start businesses, great work ethic and culture, huge academic sector which has the capacity to sort of deliver digital skills. We'll come back to that point in a minute. In fact, actually that leads quite neatly into your actual question, which is what are the challenges? And I would say number one challenge of all for me when we consider this market is digital skills. If we had a real great supply chain of talented digital people, and I don't just mean software engineers, I'm talking about data scientists, artificial intelligence experts, digital marketing people, then companies would flood here to set themselves up because of that supply of talent, because that's the biggest constraint on people's ability to set up a fintech business and be successful. So part of what we're doing with Fintech Wales will definitely be to try and help drive that skills agenda as to how we can deliver that supply chain of talent. And that's the biggest challenge of all, I would say.
I mean, Rhys, would you agree that the talent is one of the challenges for growth here in Wales?
Richard's definitely closer to it than I am, but I'd say it's improved and not the only challenge. So I think academia and universities are doing a better job by collaborating with private sector and local and central government to create courses that are making people work ready. So not sort of lecture hall based as such, by passing your degree out in industry so they're ready. There's not such a massive disconnect between learning the conceptual aspects of technologies and applying it to work. So I would agree in most part, but I think it's improved over the last 5 years. I'm not sure how Richard and Louise would comment on that, but I've personally seen availability of technical skills improve, albeit not enough within the realms of data and analytics.
Yeah, I mean, there's a worldwide shortage. I think where I've seen it be more successful than we've managed to do it is where there is a more joined-up effort, because what you have at the moment are a lot of individual private companies partnering up with different academic institutions. And as Confused.com, we have grad schemes, we have all kinds of outreach programs, and we present ourselves as role models. But what I'm really excited about with Fintech Wales coming along is a much more focal point for that, because we can achieve so much more if we work together. And it is very hard for private companies to work together sometimes without a body that brings them together with a clear agenda and purpose.
So you mentioned Fintech Wales, and that's certainly some of that is really getting developed and is getting ready to be launched. So that's one area that is going to help. I mean, what other ways do you see that we can do to attract not just the talented people, but maybe the startups or the scale-ups who want to move to somewhere like Wales that has so much to offer?
I think shouting about it is part of that. And this podcast, the Fintech Wales Awards, which are now going to happen, I'm very happy that we're a lead sponsor for that. That's happening on the 19th of July in Cardiff at the Tram Shed. I think events like that are really important, because when I meet lots of people from all around the world, they don't know what we're doing. And if we don't organise ourselves and celebrate what we have here, then they'll never know. So I think they're key routes for us as well.
I think if I can just dive in, one of the very unique things we have here culturally in Wales is a great community spirit as a nation. And actually, when you consider the power of social media in promotion, if we merely all just simply shared each other's posts and tweets and stories, we have the power to amplify the stories of success here and help each other's businesses tremendously.
Yeah,
it's a mindset thing again, and I agree. Which is quite boring for me to continuously agree with Richard and Louise.
I think this is a world first, isn't it?
It is a world first
for me. And it's been recorded, so
it is. It's
fantastic.
Live. My wife will be amazed. It's a mindset and perception of Wales, maybe. There's a lot going for it, and I think we do need to celebrate it more, not just by our patriotism, but just by being professional about it. We're all pretty well connected, and we should be shouting about it. I think, for me, more clarity is potentially needed on what success looks like. Is fintech successful in Wales? Is any type of technology sector? How do you measure success? So I'd be interested to know that as a startup owner myself, and attracting investment and talent into Wales from any part of the globe. how is it being measured? How do we know if we're on track or off track? Like you would from measuring a business success. It's quite easy to measure the success of a business. But I guess, Richard, in your role and working with the government, how are you trying to measure success?
Yeah, I have to admit that's not something that we've contemplated greatly yet. What we know at the moment is that there are sort of 15 traditional financial service companies in Wales, people like Admiral, Principality, Motor Novo, 118 Money, Hodge Bank, people like that. And we've got then obviously 30 or 40 fintech companies ranging from comprised.com to Wealthify, ActiveQuote, Credas, and other names like Delio, and Viola, who've become very active marketing. I guess the true measure of success implicitly is the scale and the number of companies that we get. Yeah, I mean, actual business success is difficult to measure. Do you measure it in revenue terms? Do you measure it in profit terms? Do you measure it in engagement terms? Traditionally, tech companies often in the early days measure success through user numbers rather than profit and money, especially when you're starting a new movement or a very new thing. It's hard to necessarily quantify it. In our case, in Wealthify, we're a business that has a very long-term horizon. We'll measure success really in 10 years around how much money we're managing on behalf of people and how much improvement we're giving them to their sort of financial outcomes. It's not really today about profit this year or even profit in 3 years. So I hope that gives some thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really about a couple of things. One, letting the world know we're here, because they don't know we're here, and we've got amazing companies, great talent. And then, as you say, Richard, it's quantifying, and you, Rhys, about how successful we are. Once people know where we are and they start seeing the businesses that we have, that should start to attract people, because I think there was a Tech Nation's fintech report from last year. The positives it was talking about for Wales was helpful tech community. And I think our weakness sometimes is perceived because we're a small nation or a small country, but actually if you flip it around, it's actually our strength, because we do know everyone, we can communicate and we can help each other grow, which doesn't always happen in places like London and other cities. So it certainly it helps us. So I suppose we're talking about challenges. We've got to mention the B word. Do we see Brexit as an issue, as a challenge?
Oh, okay. the
world first silence.
Yeah.
I'll jump
Go on, Rhys.
Well, no one really knows what it is or what's really happening, but it's certainly stalling major investment decisions, buying decisions. We're seeing in our client base, Credas' client base is largely regulated, and with the legislation changes that could happen with Brexit and EU directives, nobody really wants to move forward. You're seeing our housing economy suffer with certain comments that house pricing could drop 30%. What a massively unhelpful comment to make. So it's just that stalling. But also other parts of the globe are seeing this as an opportunity with currency fluctuations to invest. So it's a bit confusing, but I'm personally seeing in my own world that it's having more of a detrimental effect on major decisions being made.
I think that's a message shared across the business community. It's simply the fact that we've gone into a hiatus. No one really knows what to do next, and that's actually the most damaging effect of it. So I think on the one hand, from a business perspective, everyone I speak to says we need to know the outcome and get on with it, and not, for goodness sake, not delay it years and years further. Obviously, of course, though, that's got to be layered with an outcome that gives a positive climate, so one can't just kind of take any outcome. So it's a very, very tough challenge.
And what about yourself, Louise?
There is, for us, we haven't been impacted very much. I'm very happy to say. In terms of we take care of our staff who have concerns if they're not British citizens. And then the other piece for me is around the distraction, because even though we're not impacted as a business, because we have operations all around the world, but they are their own standalone companies. One of the most interesting things that came up for me was the fact that we are 100% in the cloud, and the cloud is not in the UK. And then you have a whole challenge around data transfer in and out of the UK. We've got through that challenge, but I think that just showed me when that came up that actually I was more impacted than I necessarily first realised.
Yeah, I suppose from the consumer, they wouldn't even think about that. And they come to you just to buy their insurance products. So, we need to get it resolved as soon as possible, don't we? So, we've been talking about how fintechs are doing well. We're doing well as a country. We seem to attracting more and more companies to Wales. I think of Monzo, 300 roles in Cardiff. What is it, do you think, that is attracting maybe companies like that to Cardiff, to Wales, and Mid Wales and North Wales?
Well, it's what I sort of said earlier on, really, which is a lot of the London companies start their business and they develop their tech and they prove their concept, and then there comes a moment, of course, where they do need a lot more people as they scale, and that's perhaps one of the biggest opportunities we have in Wales, is that we've got good culture and good skills, and we're really quite close to London. So when those big London firms in particular have to make that decision, where do we go next with our next office to scale up, we need to position ourselves as a great place to go for that, and we can already see those kinds of successes occurring. And of course, what happens if that works is that later on they will also do their software development here and their marketing here and other things here too. So we get the more exciting opportunities with time if we jump on the back of it. I say that with a degree of caution, in that I think all of our own businesses would be negatively affected if too many people came here too quick. So it's got to be chicken and egg, and we've got to scale up the number of people and the talent we have if we're going to serve that need. But over time, over the next 5 and 10 years, there's every prospect that South Wales becomes a leading, if not the leading, centre for this kind of thing outside of London.
Would you say the same, Louise?
Yeah, I completely agree that it's about making sure we've got the right pool of talent, and that's where, as different organisations, we're doing a lot ourselves, and then the common body will help us to do that. But for example, I'm trying to make sure that all of my staff are upskilled when it comes to technology. So even the teams who sit in marketing or finance or HR are going through what we call our School of Tech, so that they can learn about new technologies, they can learn about AI and automation, so they can understand how that's impacting their job and their future. And for me, that's, as an employer, a responsibility I feel to make sure that they are upskilled and future-proofed in terms of their career and their development.
Rhys?
Yeah, and there are obviously other things going for Wales. Richard has mentioned the 2-hour commute time to London, which is nothing. But the cost of living is far more acceptable in Wales. You've got the coasts, you've got nature on your doorstep. Over the last 5 to 10 years, most businesses that have potentially relocated here, we've retained them as a country quite well. Once you get into it, people start to enjoy it and have started relocating. So I think a combination of local and central government and businesses and people collaborating a bit more have created that real good ecosystem for people to settle in Wales and make a home of it.
I think we were meeting people through the recruitment side who maybe study in Cardiff and then actually never want to leave because they absolutely love Cardiff or Swansea and further west because of what it brings. In fact, going back to that Tech Nation report from last year, one of the other positives for Wales was it was an appealing area to live. And I think we certainly have the opportunity to give people good jobs, good salaries, good progression, but also do it in a really, really nice environment.
It's quality of life. What I've seen a big shift in, say traditional developers, it's many developers now expect to be able to work from home as well as in the office. Most people do. So it's just a real nice place to be, isn't it? So why would you want to change it? So it's the work-life balance that a lot of people is becoming more important than money on the top 5 things to look for in a new role. We tend to find money is probably around number 3.
Yeah, definitely. And Richard, with your growth over the years, I mean, how have you found sort of retaining staff and thinking of ones that you attracted from outside of Wales to here?
We've been able to recruit most of our talent locally. Occasionally, where we've got a particular skills gap, we've had to kind of reach further afield. So our head of investment strategy lives in Edinburgh, and he flies down each week to join us. We simply don't have those kinds of people and those kinds of skills here. That's fine. But that's what you have to do. You have to find them wherever you can get them if you've got a particular skill.
Excellent. So I suppose to sum it up then, finally, to all the talented individuals that are listening, to all the companies that are listening and thinking about, what would we say to the people to sum up sort of the fintech sector here in Wales? Maybe start with you, Richard.
Yeah, I'd like to just quickly get in here. Also, we've talked a little bit on the podcast about Fintech Wales and what we're doing. So just to be a little bit clearer and put a bit more bring that to life, we're creating an organisation which will probably be called Fintech Wales, but it might be called something else similar. And it's really, I think, going to just be a trade association in Wales of financial services and fintech companies to bring us all together. But its purpose will be to champion fintech and help create an environment here which helps people tackle all the problems that occur when you want to set a business up or scale it up, and even help the large companies also with their innovation agenda to help them find ways to be more disruptive and to develop and transform, to take on board fintech and technology and its use in financial services. We're putting together an advisory board which will meet in the very near future to start to put some real meat on the bones of strategy and the vision of the organisation. And I'm delighted to say we've got great backing from both UK government and Welsh government in sort of helping that. They can see the win for us as a nation in helping that come together. And anybody listening who wants to get involved, reach out and make sure that you speak up and take the advantage of being involved, but also do what you can to help this organisation build this fantastic ecosystem in Wales for fintech.
Yeah, so that's really exciting and something to look forward. That's really positive. Rhys, what about yourself?
Yeah, whilst everything's not perfect, it's improved massively. I would just phrase it as opportunity. There's an opportunity to come down and be challenged and improve your own quality of life and skill sets by being challenged on project work, solve new problems by being innovative, and at the same time enjoy your life in a fantastic country that's about to win the Grand Slam.
Do you know what? We've done 25 minutes and it's the first mention. I've been waiting for it. And Louise?
Fundamentally, I think when it comes to fintech, it's about solving customers' pain. So your organisation has to have a purpose to it. And there are a lot of different technologies out there that you can use in order to do that. But if you don't fundamentally have a purpose and you're solving something for the customers, then the technology is... it comes second to that piece.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you very much for all your time. Appreciate that you're all really busy people. And that is the end of the first Business News Wales FinTech podcast with myself, Matthew Hyde.
Here at Business News Wales, we're dedicated to showcasing the very best of Welsh business. If you think your sector could benefit from an exclusive roundtable podcast, bringing together leaders in your industry to discuss the challenges and opportunities therein, we want to hear from you. Get in touch at info@businessnewswales.com.